Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. For this video, I wanted to go over each of the invocations for the Colosseum and give a tier list on like ones I think are the best to choose. And this is for the average player. That's probably a big disclaimer, is that this tier list is meant for the average player. It's not geared for high level PVMers, you know, people who can do speed runs, Inferno, etc. It's not for those people. Okay, this is meant for the average person who's just trying to get a single KC in at the Colosseum. Okay, why do I want it like that? Because I am an average gamer. I have not done speed runs. I haven't beaten Inferno. I don't have a Zuck helm. I'm not a Grandmaster player. I'm not part of the high level community. But after over 100 attempts at the Colosseum and researching multiple different ways on people's strategies and kind of making my own condensed, simple strategy that works for every single wave consistently, I've pretty much gotten a good grasp on which invocations are the best for casual runs, basically. Are they quick runs? No. Okay, I'm not getting 20-minute runs like No Monkey and Mobile Kirby and Adicon and whatnot are getting. Okay, I'm not nearly as good at them. I'm nowhere near that level. But what I am good at is persistence, trial and error, never giving up. So this is my thoughts on what I think are going to be the invocations you want to choose when you're doing your Colosseum runs. With that in mind, a quick, simple tip for when you're doing your Colosseum runs is to always try and pick a new invocation that you like whenever possible that has a level up to it. So most invocations level up to 3 tiers, to tier 1, 2, and 3. Whenever you see another invocation that you like, that you don't mind leveling up in a future wave, always try and pick it right away, because the Colosseum has a habit of re-picking invocations that you've already selected in hopes that you would level them up. So it's always good to pick the ones that you don't mind leveling up later, just in case you get some shitty invocations in a future wave, so at least you have ones that you can fall back on. Because most of the time, 90% of the time, it's going to recommend you the same ones you've already selected. So anyways, with that in mind, let's go ahead and get started with the tier list. First of all, we're going to go ahead and start off with these singular selected invocations. There's 5 of them where they don't level up. They're just one-time picks. Okay, so we have Doom. Doom, I'm just gonna go ahead and put Doom in. I'm gonna put it in the C tier, primarily because of the fact that for the average person, Doom is just terrible. It's shit. There's no reason to pick Doom. The only time that Doom is like okay is once you've gotten good enough at Colosseum where you're barely taking any damage, you're almost never taking any hits, where it's like, yeah, I could probably get away with getting Doom. But for the first time KC, this is terrible. And the only reason I don't have it in D tier is primarily because of the Doom Scorpion. The Doom Scorpion, I would say, is probably worse than just regular Doom because it's constantly chasing you and you can't do anything about it. Again, for the average player. So that's the only reason why I have it in C tier and not D tier. Anyways, next up, we got the Totems, the healing totems. I'm gonna put healing totems in the B tier. They're not terrible, but they can be really fucking annoying, especially when you have a big stack or a big solve, whatever you want to call it, kind of in the way. It's almost like having a Minotaur standing next to everybody, ready to heal them at the moment's notice. It's really annoying. If you have something like a Venator bow, it's not a big deal. Some sort of ranged weapon, but it definitely gets in the way, and it's one of the few invocations that does affect the boss. When you happen to reach the boss, it does affect the boss, which can make it a little bit more annoying to deal with. So it's not terrible, but it's definitely not my favorite. I would not recommend it. Better than Doom, a little bit more manageable than Doom, 100%, but it's still, I try not, I prefer just not picking it if I can. I would almost say it's in C tier as well. It's more like a C plus, to be honest. I don't have a C plus tier though. Dynamic Duo. I'm actually going to put Dynamic Duo in the A tier. I almost want to have it as like a B plus. No, we'll put it in A tier. It's very doable. Most of the time, it's not a big deal if you have Dynamic Duo. I usually don't notice too much of a difference when I have this enabled, following the strategy that I have enabled, which, by the way, I'm planning to make this a Colosseum guide going over my entire strategy, all of the plugins that I use. There's a lot of plugins that I ended up using that I just haven't seen anybody talking about, anybody recommending, ones that help so much for the average gamer, someone who doesn't know how safe spotting works, doesn't know how far the range of your weapon can reach, and at what angles they can reach without getting dragged forward by accident and just taking dumb damage for no reason. Just a bunch of really useful stuff that I wish that I just don't see anybody talking about. So anyways, long story short, Dynamic Duo, it's actually pretty good. You don't notice it very often. And considering the fact, what it does is, if you don't know, it summons 2 large majors instead of just 1 major normally. It's not a big deal because they don't have any special mechanics, so you just pray mage against them. One mage is no different from 2 mages. Like, I could have 5 mages and it wouldn't make a difference because you just pray mage against them. Like, it's not a, and I think they have some of the lowest HP in the Colosseum too. Like, they're pretty weak, so they die pretty quickly too. So it's really not that big of a deal most of the time. Red Flag, I hate Red Flag. I'm putting Red Flag in the C tier too. I feel like this is one of those invocations where the better you are, pretty much once you get closer to being like a Grandmaster and stuff like that, and you've done Inferno and things, Red Master is probably not as bad. But for the average gamer, Red Flag is just a pain in the ass. It ends up getting more in the way than it does helping. So I just don't like Red Flag. It's not the end of the world, but it's enough to mess up your runs a good chunk of the time, or at least mess up your basic strategy that you would want to follow. Quartet, I'm putting Quartet in the A tier. It's kind of like Dynamic Duo, where you barely notice it. It makes almost no difference, especially if you use the freeze method like I do. I just freeze the Fremenix. If you stand next to a pillar at the beginning of a wave, when they spawn, they end up all clumped up together anyways, regardless if it's 3 or 4 of them. So this is basically like a freebie, to be honest. The only reason why it's not an S tier is because there's a few actual S tier ones, where this one, it's like, it can, you notice it. It's not if you mess up by accident, but it's not a big deal. This is also one of the few invocations that does pop up during the boss, which is partially why it's in the A tier and not the S tier. Next up, we have bees. I do not like bees. I'm gonna put the bees. I'm putting all of the bees. Actually, I'm gonna put bees 2 and 3 in the D tier, because they just become more annoying. 1 bee is manageable. It's annoying as shit, but it's manageable. Any more than that, at least for a casual player, casual strat, is annoying as shit to deal with. And I say that primarily because of the fact that bees are one of the few invocations that also pop up during the boss. And the boss alone on your first time trying to get a KC is the boss is already overwhelming enough trying to deal with him, that having anything else to distract you is a big negative. So having bees in the way is just detrimental. It's kind of like Totem, where like Totem pops up during the boss, but at least the Totem's not hurting you. It's just healing the boss. So you can at least kind of deal with it on your own time, whereas bees, you're on a clock. Like, it's coming after you. Like, you have to deal with the bees right away. So it's kind of like Totem in that regards, where like it's worse than Totem, but just as annoying. Next up, we have Blasphemy. Blasphemy is hands down one of the few S tier invocations in the entire game. All three tiers are easily S tier. That's because of the fact that the better that you get at learning the waves and how to manage them, the less and less this starts to matter. Okay, it doesn't matter how much prayer drain you have if you're taking less and less damage the more that you practice and get better at the Colosseum. Especially following my strategy that I'll be posting up soon for the average player. Okay, you barely take any damage. So because you barely take any damage, you also rarely ever need to restore your prayer very often. I'm starting to get to the point where I am consistently clearing the waves while still having like 8 brews, 6 to 8 restores left. Like, I'm barely sipping at all. My runs are not fast. That's one thing. They're not fast, but I'm at least clearing the waves, which is more than what most people can say. Next up, we have Frailty. I'll put Frailty 1 in the S and the A tier, just because being at 90 HP is okay. It's not a big deal. It's not the end of the world. You're only 9 HP less. I'm gonna put Frailty 2 though in the B tier. It's manageable, but I try to avoid it if I can help it. Okay, I would prefer not being at 80 HP if I can help it. Especially against the boss. The boss does have some moves where he has a maximum hit of 88, I believe, and I would prefer not to get one shot if I can help it. So B tier, it's manageable, especially as you get better. It's not recommended. I try to avoid it as much as possible. Okay, I might actually like rephrase these. There we go. That's a better assessment. Frailty 3, I would just say, is D tier. Being at 60 HP that's just terrible. It's so easy to die at 60 HP. You can easily just get hit by 2 attacks from either the boss or just 2 random NPCs during the waves, and you'll just die out of nowhere. Because a lot of them do have very high max hits. Like, I think the Ranger or Major has like a max hit of 48 or something like that. Like, if you already had some chip damage from like the Fremenix or something, on top of you get max hit by somebody, oh, you're dead. It's just terrible. It's too punishing. Next up, Myopia is also one of the few S tier invocations in the entire game, and that is literally solely because of the fact that Myopia, if you don't know what Myopia does, it reduces the attack range of your weapons, okay? Or specifically, it reduces the attack range of your range weapons and your powered staves for magic, okay? The reason why it's S tier is because it doesn't affect it doesn't affect auto casting spells. Okay, so like if you're on ancient spellbooks for example, and you got an ancient staff, Kodai wand, the ancient scepters, any of those, the master wand, any of those type of things that can auto cast actual spells from your spellbook, they are not affected by Myopia. So quite literally, Myopia is a free invocation, free 3 tiers of invocation, kind of like Blasphemy, where yes, your powered staff or your ranged weapon will get reduced in their attack range, but you still have your auto cast of your spells to rely on for long distance attacks. So that's why it's free. At which point you can kind of yes, the kills will sometimes take longer if you have Myopia, but at least you're getting through a wave without having to worry about being affected by it. Next up is Reentry. I am not a big fan of Reentry. I'm putting Reentry 1 in the B tier. Reentry is the one where the ranged Colossus, whenever they do their like javelin throw in the air, it leaves lava underneath where it lands. Reentry 1 is doable, simply because it only leaves lava on one spot, one tile, and it's only temporary. It gets erased at the beginning of every wave. It's manageable. I don't like picking it if I can help it, because of the fact that it can kind of get in the way if you forget about it. But more often than not, if you follow my strategy, it's very manageable. You don't have to worry about it too much. With that being said, I'm going to put Reentry 2 in the C tier. Actually, no, I'm putting it Reentry 2 in the D tier, and Reentry 3 in the D tier. And this is solely because of the fact that the lava it leaves behind are bigger and they're permanent. The permanent part is the biggest thing that I don't like about them. Just because I literally use the same exact tiles the entire run. So if I mess up and I accidentally leave a permanent pool of lava on one of those tiles that I use all the time, the run's over. So those are D-tiered. I never take those. Sometimes I'll take Reentry 1 if I have to. Otherwise, but I never level it up. Next up we got, which one is this? Relentless. I'm putting Relentless 1 in the C tier. Actually, no, I'm just saying for the average, no, I'm just gonna say all Relentless are in D tier. I just never take Relentless. There's a lot of situations where I have to tank hits whenever I need to go between pillars. In a lot of those situations, I'm relying on my melee gear. In order to tank the ranged attacks from enemies to basically guarantee that you're always going to get smacked unless you pray perfectly, you prayer flick perfectly, which I cannot do. I cannot prayer flick perfectly at all, and most people can't either. So with that being said, most people, including me, are going to be relying on tank armor in order to transition from pillar to pillar. So yeah, I would just never take Relentless. It's not worth it. Next up, we have Solarflare. Try to avoid Solarflare at all costs. Solarflare 1 is, I would say Solarflare 1 and 2 are in the B tier, simply because all of the waves are easily solvable with Solarflare 1 and 2. The problem is two things. A, they pop up during the boss fight, which kind of like the totem, it's a lot better for your first KC if you just don't have them there in the first place, so that way you can focus purely on the boss fight. You don't have anything distracting you. The second thing is that the Solarflares can sometimes ruin one of the cheese methods that I use to solve waves. So, which I'll show in my guide video later on. But it gets in the way. It completely makes that cheese method, and it cancels it out. You can't do it. So I have to resort to just moving to a different pillar to solve the same wave, which is a little bit more risky. And then Solarflare 3, I just never take. The fact it does a lot of damage and it cancels prayer, I just don't want to deal with that. And it's primarily because of the fact of in the boss fight, you don't want to be getting hit by a Solarflare level 3. Take a lot of damage out of nowhere just because you were not paying attention to it. You freak out and then you get hit by the boss while you're trying to brew up. Like it just has compounding effects. I just don't want to deal with it. It's just too much. Next up we have the Doom Scorpion. All of the Doom Scorpions are shit, D tier. Don't take them, never pick them. This is primarily because of the fact that you can't interact with the Doom Scorpion at all. You can't kill it, you can't freeze it, it's always chasing you. You can't safe spot it. It's terrible. I hate it. Do not take it for your first KC. Now, if they made it where you could actually interact with the Scorpion in some way, shape, or form, or at least you could safe spot it, then it wouldn't be as bad. But it's just too punishing, especially for the method that I use, where I'm literally using the same tiles over and over and over and over again, the same strategy for the entire run on all waves. Yeah, no, that's just a death sentence waiting to happen. Last but not least, we have the Volatility. This is the one where when enemies die, they explode. I'm actually putting Volatility in the A tier. I'll put Volatility 3 in B tier. But Volatility 1 and 2 are honestly super free. They're super free. They're not as free as Myopia and Blasphemy, where you basically don't notice them at all. But they're just as free as some of these ones where like it's very easy to just work around them. The way my method works is that I'm always at this point, I've gotten to the point where I've died so many times to Volatility simply because I forgot that I have the invocation on in the first place. I just assume everybody's going to explode. So I position in a way where just in case it does explode, because I couldn't remember if I picked it or not, I'll be fine. I'll be safe. And I'll be going over that in my guide too. Volatility 2 just makes it so that they explode to slightly bigger. They have slightly bigger explosions. And Volatility 3 just makes it so that the center tile that they explode on leaves lava behind. But the lava is temporary, which is why it's okay. The radius does not get bigger, which is one thing that I didn't realize right away. The radius stays the same as level 2. They just leave lava behind now. It's like Reentry 1, basically, except with explosions. And it's temporary, so it's really not that big of a deal. It's very manageable, especially since the only explosions you actually have to worry about for the lava are the Fremenix. So as long as you kill the Fremenix in a spot that you don't care about, this is practically a free one. It's not that big of a deal. Other than that, that's pretty much my tier list for all of the invocations. This is pretty much the order that I like to pick my invocations when I do my runs. If I can get, so let's say there's 11 waves before the boss. So if I can get Blasphemy and Myopia in a run, that is 6 waves, 6 free waves that I don't have to worry about. Okay. Frailty, or not Frailty, Volatility is also one I like. If I can get Volatility, perfect. That's also another 3 free waves, essentially. That's 9 waves total that is just free. I almost want to put, honestly, I almost want to put Volatility in the S tier, to be honest. The only reason why I have it in A tier is that sometimes you just forget about it. That is it. Sometimes you just forget about it and you just take damage out of nowhere by accident. That's the only reason why it's an A tier, but it's almost right up there in S tier as well. But yeah, if I can get Blasphemy, Myopia, and Volatility, that's 9 free waves right there if you can get those in a single run. And then any of these in the A tier are just, so Quartet, Dynamic Duo, and Frailty 1. Those are another 3 waves that are practically free, almost free. Okay, Dynamic Duo can sometimes mess you over if you just get bad spawns, but for the most part, it's okay. I'm just going to put Volatility 3 in the A tier as well. I'll just put that. If you get any of these, this is basically your best bet. This is like what I would consider a perfect run in terms of invocation RNG. If I ever get stuff from the B tier, that's when I'm like, I'm feeling a little iffy. I'm gonna put Totem all in the back too. Actually, I'm just gonna put Totem in the C tier. Actually, Doom's all the way in the back. Red Flag is a little bit better than Doom, but still shit. Totem's better than Bees, but still shit. So this will be like the order. Yeah, this is pretty much the order. And then I would also put the order like this as well for the A tier. So this is my tier list. Go ahead and let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. I'll be releasing my method, my strategy fairly shortly. If you have any questions, concerns, comments, whatever, go ahead and let me know in the comment section down below. I would really appreciate it. Other than that, I will see you guys in the next video, which will probably be the Colosseum guide. So you guys have a good one. Peace.